20 minutes later, we stood across the street, watching officers put Brenda in cuffs for trying to break into the Hoa president's house, apparently hunting for evidence of our alleged conspiracy. Rodriguez, filling out his arrest report, shook his head. Well, she made it 23 hours and 47 minutes. Close enough. Sunday, 11:47 p.m. I was just drifting off after what felt like the weekend from hell when blue and red lights flashed across my bedroom walls, turning the place into some kind of surreal nightclub. 3 squad cars sat in my driveway. Again, I stumbled outside in pajamas to find Officer Martinez wearing the expression of a man who'd rather undergo dental surgery without anesthesia than deal with Brenda's latest stunt. Let me guess, I said, rubbing my eyes. Suspicious activity? He checked his notes with the resigned tone of someone who'd lost a bet with fate. 911 call: active gunfire, domestic disturbance, and screams consistent with torture or murder. I gestured toward the silent cul-de-sac. The only sound was the desert breeze through palm fronds and the hum of overworked AC units. Officer, I was asleep. My neighbors were asleep. The most violent thing here tonight was my wrestling match with a fitted sheet. Martinez spent 15 minutes circling my house with a flashlight before returning, looking like he was questioning his career choices. Mr. Thorne, this is the 9th call about your address in 12 days. Same complainant every time. All bogus. And when someone does that, I asked. Charges for abusing emergency services, filing false reports, and in extreme cases felony endangerment. He shut his notebook with a snap. Your neighbor's building quite the record. When the patrol cars finally rolled away, leaving only exhaust and exhaustion behind, I called Rodriguez. She reported a mass shooting. I told him. I know, he said. Dispatch called me. We're arresting her tonight? I thought you'd wait until morning. Marcus, she's gone from fraud to abusing emergency response systems. The next step is actual violence. We're not taking that chance. At 2:23 a.m., I watched from behind my blinds as what looked like a small federal task force surrounded Brenda's home. No sirens, no drama, just calm precision. The arrest itself was almost boring until Brenda came out in a leopard print bathrobe that had seen better decades, screaming about police states and constitutional violations as agents loaded her into an unmarked car. Her voice carried across the desert night like a wounded coyote in the middle of an existential crisis. And then, everything changed. Monday morning, while searching her house, federal agents uncovered something huge. 3 laptops, piles of fake IDs. And according to Detective Olivia, the most extensive fraud network I've seen outside organized crime. Your neighbor wasn't just running Hoa scams, she told us at an emergency meeting. She was orchestrating fraud operations across Nevada, New Mexico, and California. Bob Richardson clutched his calculator like it was a flotation device. How many victims? 47 confirmed. For states, roughly $127,000 over 6 years. The room went silent except for the air conditioning's steady drone and Janet's sharp gasp. We weren't just dealing with a troublesome neighbor anymore. We were now witnesses in a federal racketeering case. Olivia smiled faintly. The best part? She documented everything herself: fake violations, bogus collections, threats. She built our entire case for us. That afternoon, Brenda appeared in court by video feed. Even through the grainy image, you could see the shift from designer chic to orange jumpsuit. With the creeping realization she'd finally met her match, the judge barely glanced at the list of charges: wire fraud, mail fraud, ID theft, conspiracy, and transporting stolen goods across state lines before denying bail. Flight risk, pattern of organized criminal activity. Defendant remains in federal custody until trial. Her court-appointed lawyer looked like he wished he was back at traffic court, walking out of the courthouse into the blistering Arizona sun. I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Vindication. Rodriguez texted me. Preliminary plea deal. 12 to 15 years federal time. Justice served. I looked up at the gathering storm clouds and laughed. Brenda Kensington had finally gone up against someone she couldn't bully: the federal government. Tuesday, 7:00 p.m. The Willowbrook Estates Community Center was packed, half town hall, half circus. I'd expected maybe 20 people. Instead, it felt like half of Phoenix had shown up. Detective Rodriguez sat at the front with a stack of evidence thick enough to stop bullets, flanked by Agent Olivia and our HOA's nervous regional manager. "Ladies and gentlemen," Rodriguez began, "we're here tonight to discuss the conclusion of a federal investigation that started right here." Before he could continue, the doors burst open. And walked Brenda, dressed to the nines in a designer suit, trailing behind a private attorney she'd somehow hired. "My client is here to clear her name," the lawyer announced. You could feel 200 people holding their breath. Rodriguez stood. "Miss Kensington, you're free to speak, but you should know federal prosecutors accepted your guilty plea yesterday. 12 counts of wire fraud, 8 counts of mail fraud, conspiracy to commit interstate fraud." Gasps rippled through the room. Brenda stammered about extenuating circumstances, but Rodriguez cut her off, holding up a thick document. "Would you like me to read the list?" Olivia rose to her feet. "For the record, 47 victims, 4 states, $127,000 stolen through fake violations, ID theft, mail fraud, and witness intimidation." The room erupted. Neighbors shouted questions. Cameras pivoted to capture every reaction. "This is a witch hunt," Brenda yelled. Bob Richardson stood, laptop in hand. "You stole $3,200 from us alone. 47 fake violations, 17 false police reports." Janet lifted a folder. "You terrorized 12 families, scared Lisa Santos into keeping her son inside, and harassed elderly residents over tomato plants." I stood then, and the room fell silent. "Brenda, you spent months painting me as the villain, claiming I disrupted the neighborhood, bullied seniors, and hurt property values. But the truth is, you turned our community into your personal ATM and used law enforcement as your attack dogs. The real crime wasn't the money." I told her it was destroying the trust that holds a neighborhood together. Rodriguez stepped forward with the official sentencing order. 8 years in federal prison, full restitution, lifetime ban from any HOA role. The room exploded in applause. As marshals led her away, she glanced back at me. I smiled and waved. 6 months later, I stood in my driveway, watching a moving truck pull away from Brenda's old house. A young couple with twin toddlers waved from the porch, the sound of children's laughter replacing years of tension. Brenda had served 18 months before release under probation, repaid all victims, lost her Mercedes and her designer wardrobe, and was now working at a Tucson call center under financial monitoring. But the real victory was what happened after. Our small group of victims became the Willowbrook Community Coalition, the first resident-funded HOA oversight committee in Pima County, complete with independent audits and transparent enforcement procedures. Bob's Richardson Protocol is now used statewide, preventing about $50,000 in fraud. Janet began hosting monthly new neighbor welcomes. Lisa Santos now runs our Kids Activities program. Doris Fleming started a community garden, recovered fraud money-funded scholarships, medical aid, and an annual block party that's become local legend. My HVAC business grew 40%. I started dating Janet's sister. The state legislature even passed the Willowbrook Act, requiring HOA fraud prevention measures. Last week, I got a call from a guy in Flagstaff. His HOA president was pulling Brenda's scam. "Already called the FBI," he said. "Your story helped stop it." That's when I realized we hadn't just stopped Brenda. We built a blueprint for other communities to defend themselves. Now, when I pull into my driveway and smell desert sage mixed with someone's barbecue, it doesn't smell like trouble. It smells like home. If you've survived your own HOA nightmare, drop it in the comments. Your experience might help someone else. And hit subscribe, because next week, I'm telling you about the time our new HOA president tried to embezzle the pool renovation fund and learned exactly why you don't mess with a neighborhood that's already taken someone to federal court. Hello, Lorna. Haran. Her voice carried that same honeyed sweetness she'd perfected during our marriage. I hope I'm not disturbing anything important. You never cared about that before. I leaned back in my leather chair, pen hovering over a notepad. What do you want? It's about Tatum. The carefully manufactured tremor in her voice was almost impressive. She's in the middle of an unforeseen financial disaster, and I thought, well, as her father rustling noises came through the line, accompanied by muffled urgency. I couldn't quite catch what kind of disaster, I asked, keeping my tone flat, businesslike, no warmer than I'd sound with a contractor trying to pad an invoice. She made some poor business choices. Creditors are threatening legal action. Her breathing quickened. I wouldn't come to you if it weren't urgent. She could lose everything. Tell him about the legal trouble. Tatum's anxious voice came distinctly through the speaker. Lorna paused exactly 3 seconds before saying, "It's quite serious." How serious? I wrote the word performance on my notepad and circled it twice. 50,000 would fix the immediate problem. The number fell out of her mouth too quickly, too well rehearsed. I know it's a lot, but ask for more, Mom. Tatum's coaching came through loud and clear over whatever bargain bin speakerphone they were using. The silence that followed could have sliced glass. I see. I set down my pen, marveling at how desperation stripped people of subtlety. And what makes you think I've got that kind of money lying around? Well, I heard Lorna's voice cracked like thin ice. People talk, you know, about your success. People talk about a lot of things. I turned my chair toward the rain-streaked window glass that likely cost more than their monthly rent. Not all of it true, Harlan, please. She's your daughter. My daughter tossed me out with $10 in my pocket and called me a failure. My voice stayed calm, measured, factual. Now she needs 50,000 from that failure? That was different. She was upset. She was honest, I said, lifting my coffee and enjoying the warmth. Brutally, refreshingly honest, but you're her father. Family means not 1 cent. Even I was surprised at the finality in my tone. Ever. You can't be serious. I ended the call mid-sentence and set the phone aside. Rain kept drumming against the glass, rinsing the city clean while leaving the essentials untouched. Just as I'd expected, just as I'd wanted. I sat back for 30 seconds, then picked up my personal cell. Time to run my own little experiment. Friday. Morning sunlight spilled through my office windows, turning Lake Washington into a sheet of hammered silver. I'd spent last night preparing my strategy. Coffee in hand, phone recording app open. I was ready to confirm what I already suspected. The call to Tatum would settle it. I rehearsed my defeated tone twice before dialing. She picked up on the second ring, voice bright with anticipation. Dad, I was hoping you'd call. Tatum, sweetheart. I added just enough quaver to sound genuine. I have terrible news about my investments. What kind of news? The light in her voice dimmed instantly. The market crashed hard yesterday. I've lost nearly everything. The lie rolled off my tongue with surprising ease. Property values tanked. Leverage positions got called in. It's a complete mess. Silence stretched between us, wide and cold. How much is everything? She asked cautiously. I'm meeting bankruptcy lawyers next week. I paused for dramatic effect, eyes resting on my very real bank statement, 8 figures untouched. Foreclosure notices start Monday. Foreclosure? Her tone was suddenly flat, calculating. But you said you were doing well. I thought I was. Turns out I was over-leveraged. Too confident. I let a note of genuine sadness creep in, not for money, but for what I was about to uncover. I'm so sorry this ruins our Saturday plans. The pause lasted exactly 12 seconds. I counted. What does this mean exactly? Her voice had lost every trace of sympathy. Pure math now. It means I might afford a small apartment, if I'm lucky. I shut my eyes, bracing for what I knew was coming. I realize this changes everything for you. What? Seriously? The mask fell away completely. Then, don't come to dinner Saturday. No hesitation. No, we'll figure this out. Or money doesn't matter. Just a cold dismissal, quick as a knife to the ribs. I understand, I said evenly, keeping my composure through sheer will. This changes everything for you. I mean, what's the point if you can't? She caught herself, but too late. I'm sorry, Dad, but this is really bad timing. Thank you for being so clear, I replied. It's not about feelings, it's goodbye, Tatum. I ended the call and stared at the phone for a full minute. 28 years of fatherhood, reduced to a transaction. When the money vanished, so did she. The recording captured everything: her tone, her priorities, her complete indifference to my supposed ruin. Perfect proof of what I'd already known. I saved the file with the day's date, then opened my laptop. Time to see exactly what my family had been hiding. The weekend vanished into research and planning. By Monday morning, I knew enough to bring in a professional. Tatum's failed business had left a trail of furious customers across multiple sites. Lorna's medical fundraisers on Instagram looked more suspicious the deeper I dug. Marcus Reed's office sat on the 15th floor of a glass tower over Elliott Bay. Former FBI, now a specialist in financial fraud. Exactly what I needed, Mr. Voss. Reed was younger than I'd pictured, mid-40s, sharp-eyed, solid handshake. You mentioned background checks onto people. I sat in the client chair, glancing at the framed diplomas and commendations. Competence practically radiated from the walls. My daughter and ex-wife have approached me for substantial financial help, I said, businesslike. I want complete background reports before I decide anything. What specifically concerns you? He asked, opening a new file. Legal liabilities, fraud, anything they're hiding. I slid over the info sheets I'd compiled. They can't know about this. He scanned them briefly. 1 week for full reports. My fee is $5,000, expenses included. Fine, I wrote the check. How thorough will this be? Everything legally accessible: public records, court filings, business registrations, customer complaints, social media. He slipped the check into the folder. If they're lying, I'll find it. By Wednesday, the preliminary report was ready. Reed's voice stayed even. Just the facts. Your daughter ran an online store, Lux Living Essentials, from January to October 2004. He slid evidence across the desk. She took about $150,000 from customers and delivered almost nothing. Photos of fake listings, compilations of complaints, payment records with no fulfillment. It was organized fraud. Some customers are considering legal action, but they're not coordinated. No charges yet, and my ex-wife, more interesting. He opened another folder. She's raised large sums on Instagram for supposed medical issues. Medical records show no serious health problems. Friday's final meeting filled in the rest. Reed's comprehensive dossier revealed tax evasion risks, possible criminal charges, and a long-running pattern of deception. Your ex-wife's undeclared donations could trigger federal tax investigations, Reed said. Your daughter could face felony fraud if the victims organize. I flipped through the thick stack, stunned at how complete their illusions had been. Both living on borrowed time and borrowed everything else. Excellent work. I stood, taking the folders. Send the final bill to my office. The 23-minute drive home was enough to process the reality and the possibilities. They'd handed me every tool I'd need for flawless, lawful revenge. Back in my office, I spread the evidence over my desk like a general laying out war maps. Customer contacts, proof of fraud, tax evasion records. Everything needed to dismantle them completely. I closed the main folder and reached for my phone. Time to make some very interesting calls to some very angry people. By Thursday night, the weight of total knowledge sat heavy and satisfying on my mahogany desk. 2 years of calculated deceit laid bare in neat stacks. I arranged them with care, savoring the symmetry of it all. They had assembled their fragile empire with meticulous care, never imagining that someone might catalog each falsehood, every theft, every staged tear designed to draw false sympathy. The curtain was about to rise on the performance of a lifetime. Tatum picked up on the first ring, her voice tight, betraying the anxiety she was struggling to hide. "Dad, Tatum, sweetheart," I replied, injecting just enough excitement to make it sound real. "You won't believe what's happened. That urgent deal I mentioned? It went through." "What urgent deal? I thought you lost everything." "Market swings," I said lightly. "One day you're in the red, the next you're back on top." As I spoke, I flipped through her fraud files, studying glossy images of products that had never existed. "Not only did I recover everything," I continued, "I ended up $3 million ahead." The pause that followed lasted exactly 8 seconds. I could almost hear the calculations spinning in her mind. "Oh my goodness," her tone shifted instantly, panic replaced by syrupy charm. "That's amazing. I'm so happy for you. Does this mean our Saturday dinner is back on?" "About Saturday?" She hesitated, gathering her words. "I really hope we can still have that family dinner. I've missed you, and I think it'd be wonderful for us to reconnect." This was the same voice that had dismissed me without hesitation only the day before, now laced with manufactured warmth. Classic manipulation, exactly as expected. "Of course, sweetheart. Family first." I turned a page in Lorna's medical records, noting the glaring absence of any real illness. "By the way, how are things financially? You sounded worried earlier." "Well," she drew out the word, preparing her pitch. "I hate to bring it up, but I've been having a few business issues. Nothing major, just some cash flow problems." "What kind of problems?" "Mostly customer complaints. A few people say they never got their orders, but I'm sure it's just shipping delays." The lie rolled off her tongue with such ease, I almost respected the craftsmanship. "If you could spare just $200,000, I could straighten it all out and resolve these misunderstandings." "200,000, I said thoughtfully. "That's a rather exact figure for simple cash flow issues. It would mean the world." "If you'd consider it," she said, relief slipping into her voice. "We'll talk more on Saturday," I replied. "I'll need to shuffle some funds around, but family is family." "Thank you, Dad. You have no idea how much this means. I can't wait to see you." After hanging up, I leaned back, eyes on the evidence spread before me. 150,000 stolen from customers, dozens of victims dismissed as irrelevant. Yet she had no hesitation asking me for $200,000. The daughter I had raised had turned into a stranger capable of sustained, deliberate fraud. This test call had confirmed my worst suspicions and handed me perfect justification for my next move. I reached for the business card Marcus Reed had included in the file. It was time to introduce some very angry people to the idea of justice.by. Friday morning, I was in Merritt Klein's downtown office. Complete evidence packages were spread across his conference table like pieces of a complicated jigsaw. Rain streaked the windows 40 floors above Elliott Bay, a perfect backdrop for mapping out legal combat. "This is airtight, Harlan," Merritt said, reviewing the documentation with a lawyer's calm detachment. "This isn't just bad business, this is intentional fraud." I'd known Merritt for 15 years, poker nights, holidays, the sort of friendship that survives both divorces and career shifts. He understood both my legal aims and my personal stake. "How fast can we move after serving papers?" I asked. "The timeline you want is aggressive, but legal," he said, stacking the customer complaints in order. "The process server can be there at 7:30 tomorrow night. That gives you time to arrive first." "Perfect. I want her to see the consequences hit in real time." "Are you absolutely sure?" "Once we do this, there's no reversing it. Your daughter will face severe financial and possibly criminal penalties." She made that choice when she decided to steal from innocent people. The rest of the afternoon became a steady rotation of phone calls. Using Marcus Reed's list, I reached out to 23 defrauded customers. Every call followed the same arc: skepticism giving way to interest, then eager commitment to join a collective lawsuit. Ren Sato, a 34-year-old teacher from Tacoma, emerged as the group's natural spokesperson. Her voice carried the restrained fury of someone used to remaining polite far too long. "We've been trying to track her down for months," she told me during our third call. $5,000 for a dining set that never existed. "I saved for 8 months for that furniture. You're not alone anymore," I told her. "We'll have professional representation, shared costs, and maximum impact. You're serious about this? What's your connection to her?" "I'm a concerned citizen who knows her location and has proof of a long-running fraud scheme." By that evening, Merritt's team had worked past hours assembling a complete lawsuit package. The room buzzed with focused energy, paralegals sorting evidence, associates digging through case law, everyone aware of the need for flawless execution. "Process server is confirmed for tomorrow evening," Merritt said, finalizing the timeline. "Private residence, multiple witnesses. This will make an impression." Saturday morning brought final coordination calls. David Chen, our process server, had 2 decades of handling tricky deliveries. His calm precision gave me confidence. "A family dinner means emotional witnesses," he noted. "Perfect for psychological effect if that's your goal." That's exactly the goal. Everything was emotion. 23 victims on the road to justice, with evidence no court could ignore. Tatum's carefully stacked house of cards would fall in front of the very family that had ignored her crimes. The plan was airtight. Serve her at 7:30, maximum audience, 0 escape. Leaving Merritt's office, I made another call. Lorna's reckoning needed a separate path. Medical fraud deserved public exposure. Tax fraud, federal scrutiny. I met Jessica Chen from the Seattle Tribune at a neutral coffee shop downtown. She was an investigative reporter specializing in social media scams, exactly the kind of expertise I needed. "I have proof of systematic fraud by a major Seattle area Instagram influencer," I said, sliding a manila envelope across the table. "Anonymous tips require serious verification," she replied. "What kind of fraud are we talking about?" "She's taken over $200,000 in donations for a fabricated medical condition. The medical records prove she's never had it." Jessica's skepticism gave way to sharp focus. She opened the envelope, flipping through Marcus Reed's compiled records, medical files, analytics, estimated income, everything needed to blow the story open. "These are major claims," she said. "We'll have to fact-check every detail. But if this is accurate, it's explosive." Instagram influencer scams are bad enough, but faking a medical illness is another level entirely. "This isn't about revenge," I said. "It's about preventing more victims. If it all checks out, we can publish online within hours." The tax implications alone could spark a federal investigation. While she began verification, I called the IRS tip line. David Park, a tax fraud investigator, specialized in social media cases. "I'm reporting unreported income from social media over $200,000 in 18 months, I explained, providing the evidence. "What's your connection to this person?" "Concerned citizen with access to legally obtained records." Everything was synchronized. Jessica's expos would go live at 800 right in the middle of the family dinner. The IRS would begin formal audits Monday morning. Lorna's public image would implode before she even cleared her plate. Instagram will likely pull her account within hours of this going viral, Jessica told me later. "Perfect," I said. "Quickest impact, least recovery time." By 5:30, both operations were ready. Tatum at 7:30, Lorna at 8 o'clock. 2 years of deceit and betrayal, ending in one evening. I closed my laptop, checked my watch. In 2 hours, justice would be served alongside dinner. The 45-minute drive to Tacoma felt smooth, as if the universe had synced with my plan. I pulled into the driveway at exactly 7 o'clock. The house looked smaller than I remembered, warm light spilling from the dining room windows and a false promise of peace. In my hands was a beautifully wrapped gift box, empty, but crafted for psychological weight. Every prop mattered. "Harlan," Lorna greeted me at the door, her voice dripping with false delight. jewelry glinting from her latest fraudulent donation haul. "You're looking great. Success really does become you." "It's nice to be back in this house," I answered as I stepped into the foyer, the very spot where I'd once been handed $10 and told to leave. So many memories here. The dining table was prepared for four, candles dancing over Lorna's finest china. Tatum walked out from the kitchen, smoothing her dress, clearly chosen to suggest a level of success she didn't actually have. "Dad," her hug felt deliberate, almost rehearsed. "I'm so glad you could make it despite everything lately. Water under the bridge, sweetheart." I set the gift box in a visible place on the side table. "Brought a special surprise for everyone, but good things are worth waiting for." Grady was near the TV, stiff in formal clothes, trying to appear the supportive spouse. The unease rolled off him. He could sense something was wrong, though he couldn't pinpoint it. Dinner conversation limped along with polite small talk. Lorna wore her hostess mask while Tatum worked up to her financial pitch. I glanced at my watch discreetly. 7:25, 5 minutes until the first surprise, we were thinking. Tatum began right on cue. "Since you've done so well with investments, maybe we could talk about a family partnership." "Family is everything," Lorna added warmly, reaching over to squeeze my hand. "We should always be there for one another." "Absolutely," I agreed, keeping my eyes on the second hand as it approached 7:30. "Success looks good on you too, Tatum. You seem like someone who's got it all figured out." The irony tasted sweet. Here she was, speaking of investments while hiding from defrauded clients, ready to ask for money from the father she discarded like trash. "It's not exactly a loan," Tatum said, slipping deeper into her rehearsed pitch. "More of a father-daughter partnership. 200,000 would fix our immediate cash flow problems and set us up for incredible returns." 200,000? I repeated slowly. "That's very specific." The doorbell chimed exactly at 7:30. Tatum froze mid-sentence, confusion flashing across her face. "Were we expecting someone?" "How unexpected," I said, keeping my satisfaction contained. "Perfect timing." She stood reluctantly, annoyed at the interruption. From my seat, I could see her open the front door to a man in a business suit. "Tatum Voss, I have legal documents for you from the King County Superior Court." Her face drained of color. "What? That has to be a mistake. You're being served in a class action lawsuit over fraudulent business practices and customer deception. Please sign here to confirm receipt." "This is ridiculous," she muttered. "We're having a family dinner," Lorna shouted from the dining room, but Tatum's hands trembled as she took the papers. Her carefully built facade shattered instantly. "This concerns the Lux Living Essentials online store and multiple counts of intentional fraud," the process server continued, his calm professionalism clashing with the chaos now infecting the room. Tatum stumbled back into the dining area, wrestling the papers in unsteady hands. Lorna was already on her phone, convinced she could fix this with the right calls, unaware her own storm was seconds away. "With your resources, Harlan, we can hire the best lawyers in Seattle," she said with full confidence. "This is just a misunderstanding money can solve." I stayed seated, observing like a conductor orchestrating a performance. Tatum's face was pale as the scope of her trouble sank in. "I know an attorney through Instagram who handles things like this," Lorna continued, scrolling furiously. "A few calls and it'll all be cleared up. How many customers are on here?" Tatum's voice cracked. 150,000. "I don't have that kind of money." "We stand together as a family," Lorna declared, still sure she could fix it. "That's what families do." She opened Instagram to contact her legal friend, then froze. Her phone was flooded with thousands of angry comments arriving faster than she could read them. "What? Why are people calling me a fraud?" Someone had posted an article. "Local influencers' fake illness exposed." I checked my watch. 8:05. Jessica Chen's piece had gone live right on time. "They have my medical records," Lorna said, panic rising. "How is that possible?" "They're saying I stole from cancer patients." Grady stepped closer, reading over her shoulder. Lorna, what illness? What are they talking about? It's lies. All lies. She insisted, but her voice was thin, unconvincing, as she frantically tried to delete comments faster than they appeared. Harlan, you have to help us. Use your money to make this disappear. Disappear, I finally spoke, voice level. Justice doesn't vanish just because it makes you uncomfortable. Tatum looked up from her legal papers, finally connecting the dots. Dad, did you know about this? Interesting, isn't it, how quickly family loyalty appears when the law shows up? I stood, straightening my jacket. The timing is something, isn't it? First your legal trouble, and now this article about your mother's medical fraud. Medical fraud? Grady's shock was genuine. Lorna, you've been lying about being sick? Her social media presence was collapsing in real-time, screenshots of the Seattle Tribune piece exploding across platforms, followers demanding refunds, donors threatening lawsuits. This is coordinated, Lorna whispered, realizing the full scale of her downfall. I already gave you both my surprise, I said, walking toward the door as the chaos peaked. It's called accountability. You can't leave us like this. Tatum's voice was raw, desperation setting in. We're family. I stopped at the doorway, savoring the moment I'd anticipated for 2 years. 2 years ago, you threw me out with $10 and called me worthless. My voice carried the weight of every night in that industrial motel, every moment of grinding poverty they dismissed. Tonight, you learned what that was worth. The door closed behind me with the cold finality of justice fulfilled. Through the window, I could see them both glued to their phones, watching their lives disintegrate in real time. While Grady slowly stepped back from the ruins of his marriage, 4 months later, I stood on a Hawaiian beach, warm sand under my feet, the Pacific swallowing the sun. This place was the opposite of that motel. Here there was choice, abundance, peace. That morning, Merritt had called with the final legal updates. Tatum got the maximum civil judgment, he'd said, satisfaction in his tone. $153,000 in restitution, plus court costs. The judge didn't hold back, called it systematic fraud. Criminal charges too. Felony conviction, 3 years probation, community service, permanent record. Any employer will see it. 23 victims were made whole. Tatum faced years of low-pay work and garnished wages. Justice delivered. Exactly as planned, Lorna's ruin was just as complete and far more public. Jessica's article had unleashed a wave of investigative reporting. Every donation, every fake medical claim, every tax irregularity laid bare. Instagram banned her permanently. The IRS audit found $200,000 in unreported income, wiping out every ill-gotten gain. Now she cleaned commercial buildings, living in a cramped studio, her glamour reduced to survival. Grady divorced her in May, shielding his business from the fallout. Even passive enablers couldn't escape when the fraud was deep enough. That afternoon, my phone buzzed, a new real estate opportunity in Seattle. Another chance to build wealth the right way. Through skill, judgment, and effort. You look at peace here, said Rebecca, an attorney I'd met in Yellowstone last month. Intelligent, successful, genuine. Everything my old family wasn't. Like you've let go of something heavy. I've learned some people earn a place in your life, I said, watching waves erase footprints in the sand. Others just take up space until you realize their real value. 3 years ago, I measured my worth by their approval. Now I knew it came from character, integrity, and the resolve to demand justice. The $10 they'd given me wasn't an insult, it was exactly what they thought loyalty was worth. But they'd underestimated everything else. The beach house behind me wasn't necessity, it was choice. My investments generated income that would grow for decades. My relationships were rooted in respect, not manipulation. I sometimes wondered if Tatum learned anything from her community service at the homeless shelter. Maybe seeing real hardship would give her perspective. Lorna, I doubted, would ever change, but at least her power to harm was gone for good. The sky burned gold and crimson as the sun dipped away. Tomorrow, I'd fly back to Seattle to new opportunities, and the satisfaction of patient, deliberate justice. 2 years ago, they left me with $10 and the word worthless. Today, I knew my value had nothing to do with their opinion and everything to do with my principles.